Goa, the land of sun, sand, and sea, is a paradise for any nature and peace loving person. The history of Goa highly is influenced by the 451 years of Portuguese rule. This influence and blend of Eastern and Western culture can be seen in Goa's built heritage, culture, and lifestyle. This fusion is also visible and reflects in the art and craft fashioned by hands of Goan artisans. The unique handicrafts include pottery, seashell art, coconut shell craft, brass art, terracotta, and one art that has been revived recently is azulejos, a hand painted ceramic tiles which is a perfect example of Western art and craft practiced by Goan artisans. However, the origin of azulejos is disputed. Some say it was originated in Morocco, others in Spain.
Azulejos, as I studied and I've understood this art, it's not an art that came from Portugal. It's an art that came from Spain during the medieval period. So that there they started painting, because first it was glass painting. After glass painting, realizing that the paints also would fade after a while, they wanted to come up with something that is more substantial, is when they started painting on the tiles. Azuloj means basically a little stone. When went to Portugal, became azuloj, the color, the blue. But it started with being best known as the little stone. So why stone is because it was done on ceramic tiles which once baked are as good as stone. They have no effects to weathering. So stone itself is a product which never weathers. It might break into pieces, but it will not weather. Likewise, when ceramic fired, it doesn't weather. It does not get affected by sun, heat. So that is how this painting came to existence, where they realized that if they paint on a ceramic base and fire it, it has like unlimited life.
Azulejos is nothing but tiles which are painted. That there was a trend in Portugal. They used to paint tiles and then fire them, and they used to have walls and different things. Now it is caught up in Goa, saying this is something Portuguese.
Azulejos, basically, when we hear this term, there are like two different derivations. Some documents say that azul is a word, a Portuguese word, which is meant for the color blue, and that's how the derivative came. And certain documents in history say that azulejos is a term for a smooth polished stone in Arabic, and that's how, if we try to trace history, basically the ceramic tiles came from the Arabic end, and they were like the tiles which arrived, or the technique which arrived to Portugal, and then I think we are in Goa now, because Goa was a Portuguese colony. That's how it landed into Goa. So azulejos are the hand painted blue tiles on white surface. So it's a glazed white tile on which the blue pigment is used, and that is how we come to this term azulejos.
Irrespective of its origin, azulejo tiles in Goa have adored churches, houses, streets, and public places for centuries. This art form now finds a distinctive place even in commercial establishments, and has given new life to Mario Miranda's art and caricatures.
To the best of my knowledge, azulejos have a connection with Morocco. When in the 13th century, the Moors conquered Spain and Portugal, and they might have brought this art of tin enamel tiles to Europe. For about 100 years, 13th, 14th or middle of 15th century, nothing happened. It was when Dom Manuel became the king of Portugal and he got attracted to these tiles that he introduced them as covering for interiors and exteriors in Portugal. So tiles, you can say, are very much part of Manueline architecture. And the motifs that we see on the azulejos, they are mostly blue and white. And Manuel was known as a discoverer, navigator. He loved the ocean. He sponsored many discoveries. So blue, I think blue and white represented the ocean. That's why they were popular colors. Another reason why it could have been popular was because it was easily available. Azul is the Latin name for blue. That is why the name comes azulejos or azulejos. The other thing is that after it became popular, it was also, I think, used to cover walls that were peeling, because the weather or climate in Europe was not good. So when the walls were peeling, they would cover it up with these azulejo tiles. It added beauty and it covered up the ugly portions. Yeah, and the thing is that it came to India via, of course, the Portuguese, but it became popular here also. It was either only for decorative purposes or also to tell a story. For example, if you go to Institute Menezes Braganza, you will see the whole narrative in azulejos. The story of how the Portuguese arrived, how the Zamorin of Calicut received them, and so on. So there's a story there.
It started in Spain. From Spain it moved to Mexico. From Mexico it moved to Portugal. When it came to Portugal, the only problem why it didn't in early 15th century, 14th, 15th century, it did not progress because the tiles were not made in Portugal. So they were importing the tiles from Spain, which would mean that it is coming round the globe. So that many days of booking those tiles, blocking that money, and then doing this art, and then using this art to survive or beautify. So that incurred a lot of cost for people in Portugal. So that's why in 14th century when they started this art, they got influenced by Spain. They thought that is a very lucrative way of decorating your house. At the same time, they realized that there is a lot of cost implication. So it was not flourishing the way it should have as an art. By 15th century, a local artist decided that if Spain can make the tiles, so can we. So he started making the tiles. When he started making the tiles, he was very, very successful in the thickness of the tiles. At the same time, the sizes were always the basic concept of azulos is joining small stones together. And in those days, they were using pure ceramic clay, that is the white body clay. That is called the stoneware clay. That clay would enhance the colors when it comes on the glaze. Then they started doing it on a white base tile, which we don't now very easily get in India also. Because of the cost of manufacturing, these white tiles is much higher than cost of manufacturing the red base tiles. Traditionally, even going further, the best results you will always get out of a white base, because colors brighten up on a white base. It is a very simple, principle of colors, that lighter the base, the brighter the colors on top. So that's how azulejos came into existence, where they chose white tile and not any other color.
आयजुलेजो स्टायल गोंयान पुर्तुगीज आसतना ते घालपा लागले आनी गोंयचे जी मेन ऑफिस आनी जे पॅलेसी आशिल्ल्यो पुर्तुगीज टायमार तेंच्यांनी यूज केले. पूण यूज कशें केलें की हांगा फोटोग्राफी करप गोंयचे कितें स्पॉट आहा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल सांदिस देवळां एक शेत आसा व्हडलें, थंय लोक काम करताले रेगुलर, ताजी फोटोग्राफी करून पुर्तुगालाक धाडली आनी पुर्तुगालाक तेंच्यांनी फूल पेंटींग तयार केलें आनी हांगा हाडून इन्स्टॉल केलें की सांदिस देव एक हॉल आसा, वेडिंग हॉल, ते पोस्ट ऑफिस आसा, हेल्थ सेंटर आहा, त्या हॉलान हें पेंटींग आसा लायिल्लें.
Making azulejo tiles is a beauty in itself. It starts with the artist making, designing, and painting the tiles and ends with the process of glazing and baking it at 800 to 1000 Fahrenheit.
So azulos coming from Portugal was an art that was done by painting on tiles with hand. There were no decals, there were no stickers, it was an absolute raw hand painting of tiles done with repetitive tiles also. So first they would do it freehand. The expertise lies, the beauty and the expertise lies there. to do a freehand painting on a tile which is repetitively the same, it has no difference. Then when we went on to doing production of this, because then it was like doing a chapel. Now doing a chapel means you can't, if it is a geometrical design, it cannot be freehand, there will always be a difference, because if you notice our right and the left hand are different. So when we start repetitive things, then we need to develop a technique which would repeat the same design. So what did they do? They started with stenciling it. The moment the stenciling came into existence, the art started even growing better, because you could do from few tiles, you could do thousands of them. And then came the technique of painting those things. So the painting of these colors, azul was mainly, azulos were always in blue. So first you take the tile, either you trace or you freehand draw on it. There are two ways of doing it. If it's a smaller tile work, you can also do your paintings freehand on it. Once you finish your freehand drawing, it is a technique of layering of colors. That is, when you put the first coat of blue, if you wanted that shade, leave it there. If you want a darker shade, the same color has to be repeated again on it. Again you want a darker shade, again the same third coat. So the number of coats increase, the colors increase. So once we finish the tile, very important thing is, because these tiles are almost, they are like a jigsaw puzzle. If you remove them, you don't know which tile to put when, and then you take that time to put it back. So there is a kind of a coding done behind every tile. So when we are painting, we first start coding them. So there are various kind of codes. It's not that any standard codes, but we usually do A1, A2, A3, A4. So we know that A is the first row, B1, B2, B3 is the second row. See, so if it's a large, like what I did for the High Court, if it's on that scale, then we go we went to Z small with 48 tiles vertical, you know. So coding is one of the important aspects of doing azulos also. So you need to code your tile, because you are not going to be the fitter then. The fitter has to know what has to be fitted. Once the coding is done, the painting is done, it goes in the furnace. It goes in the furnace to 800 to 810 degree. We ensure a very high quality of firing, because we don't want any kind of weathering affecting the tile. So once it goes to that level, it is like a permanent color for timeless. It's like timeless. As long as you want it, it will stay. Some people, like, you know, the regular tile people do a 300, 400 degree firing. So if you notice, over a period of time, you know, you get those tiles of Jesus and Lakshmi and Ganpati. A lot of people put it at their entrances. Those are also, they are ceramic decals basically, they are not hand painted tiles. So those they fire at 300-400, but if you see, eventually the color changes. From a bright red, it will start becoming red, little lighter red, and then rust, you know, it weathers. But this thing will never weather, because we are taking it at a extreme temperature of 800 degrees, which is a tile itself. And the quality of tile also, we don't use any local 700-800 degree fired tiles. We go for tiles which are white body base, which are 1000 degree fired. So ensuring that the quality of the tile is very important, because that decides the color of your azulos. Post the quality of tile, your painting skills are equally important, because you will never come to know unless you are experienced enough to paint azulos. Third is the firing technique, how you fire. Again, for firing technique, you will wonder, how can you fire so many tiles? Are they kept on top of each other? How are they fired? What is it? So there are specialized racks that come for these tiles. Now they have stopped manufacturing it. So they are also a piece of art now, because you don't get those. So in a firing, there were 14 tiles fired at one time. The racks, I'll show you the racks also. So those racks, we place the tiles in the rack, and then they are fired. They are high temperature racks. So we go at 800, but they can take around 1300-1400 of temperature. So those tiles, they are very, very beautiful, you know. And now they have you get different racks now, but they are very space consuming. These tiles, you know, if I have an order, like for example, the High Court order, we were firing 1600 tiles. We could fire it in 3 to 4 days, because of the racks that we had. And those racks we were not getting anywhere in India. We had to go to Gujarat, figure out of that he had only last 30 racks left in the old factory from where I got those racks. Out of that, in transportation, 14 broke. So we were left with only 11 to 12 racks when we had it over here. And we could do, but those racks are very, very efficient in terms of production. So we do that. So those, again, I will be showing you the process. In that, I will show you how we paint, how we put them in the rack, and how we fire. But when in Spain, before it came to Portugal, Portugal only did blue. But in Spain, they had red, blue, green, yellow, and it was almost like a fresco painting done on tiles. Fresco paintings are the lives of different artists, maybe some important character whose there's a style of painting. So the tiles were used to paint like that and put up in the chapel. Came to Portugal, they stuck to blue, different shades of blue. Came to Goa, they started with blue. Eventually, they started also realizing that this is an art which can incorporate many colors and can be look pretty. Like for example, what I did with azulejos in the High Court, it is only black. We have not used a single other color but black, but it is the same technique of using single color and creating multiple shades out of one, and hand painted. So we have done almost 1600 tiles, which have been, one mural is around 1600, one mural is around 1800 tiles, which has been hand painted. Individual tile has been hand painted. We have derived to a technique where what we first did is we took the tile, we first took the design. Now to our advantage today in this 2021-22, we have the advantage of computers. So what we do is we first hand paint a design, whatever painting it may be, whatever is on our mind, we hand paint it. Then we take it to the scale size. Scale size is the computer, we put in the scale. Suppose it is like 26 feet by 26 feet. So the whole design is enlarged to that level of 26 by 26 feet. Then as per the size of the tile, that is 150 mm by 150 mm, those blocks are made. Okay. Once we make those blocks, then we trace the same design on the tile, which has become like a 50% job less now than earlier, because earlier they would paint that directly on the tile. Now we trace it out, the hand painted tiles are traced out on the tiles, and then we are painted. While we paint, we make sure that we create numerous shades out of one color only. The first thing that we do is we take designs on the tile. Now it could be freehand, it could be traced. There are two choices of doing that. If we are going to do repetitive, we usually trace. If we are just going to do one design, then we hand paint it freehand. Once we finish the freehand, the number of tones we get is that the first color tone that we put, that will be the lighter tone. If we want it a little darker, we will use the same color to do a second coat, then a third coat, depending upon the shades that we want to get into the design. But it is a single color. Okay. After we have done that, we wait for some time for it to dry. And it is so sensitive that even a smallest fingertip also touches, it will leave an impression. So you have to be very careful while you're painting, because while you're painting, you don't have any support system to paint. So your hand is sometimes touching the color, so that comes out. So it's a very, very sensitive coloring technique. Little bit of even, your touch of your palm, it's not removed the color. You cannot see that the color has come out, but your palm is touched, which will show only after firing.
Yes, I think azulejos basically is the hand painted tile. And now of late there are many innovations happening to it, probably for more of convenience or mass production, where there is printing which is happening. Printing, and so the process is that you usually have the white tile. I'll just showcase one here. So this is a glaze tile. We can see the glaze here, which is done onto the ceramic clay, which is biscuit fired, and then we have the glaze here. Now the glaze, there are two different methods. The pigment could be worked up on something known as underglaze. What is underglaze is when the white pigment is also not glazed. It is raw, and then this particular pigment is used onto it. This is basically a silica base. Okay, so silica in the sense it is glass. Silica base which has the capability that it fuses with the other material when it is raised to a particular temperature. So these pigments also come in varieties, like you will have different what I can say outcomes according to different levels at which the tile is baked in the furnace. Furnace is, we call it a kiln. So once it is hand painted, either over the glaze or under the glaze, it is put into the kiln for firing.
स्टायल करपाक पयलीं एक बिस्कीट तयार करचें पडटा. ही युरोपाक हातीन करताले ओल्डन डेज, बट आतां ही रेडीमेड आयल्या मार्केटान, जी गुजराताक मेळटा आनी नाजाल्यार युरोपाकूय हाडूंक शकता तुमी. जो वयलो जो प्रोसेस आहा ग्लेजिंगाचो तो हँडमेड करचो पडटा हातान, आनी जो ओल्ड टायमारूय हातानच करताले आनी बिस्किटूय हातान करताले ओल्डन डेज. जशी आमी चपाती करता सेम तशीच लाटची पडटाली, ताका सायडीच्यान कटींग करची पडटाली नायफ घेवन, आनी तो एक ब्लॉक आसतालो तो सायजीन कट करून ती पयली बिस्कीट भाजची पडटा भट्टेन, आनी मागीर ताका ग्लेजिंग करचें पडटा. तेजो टेम्परेचर मोर दॅन 1000 डिग्री आसा बिस्कीटचो. अदरवायज लेस डिग्रीची बिस्कीट घेतली जाल्यार ती बँड जाता भट्टेन, आनी आफ्टरवर्ड्स ती ग्लेजिंगूय दॅट मोर दॅन 1000 डिग्रीची ग्लेजिंग घेवन ती ग्लेज करची पडटा. हे सगळे प्रोसेस जाल्या नंतर तो पेंटिंगाक वता. तेजें ड्रॉईंग पेन्सिलीन करता, चारकोलान करता, कार्बन, स्टेन्सील, वेरियस टायप ऑफ पेंटिंग्स आसा दे आफ्टर ग्लेजिंग जाता. आनी जे पेन्सिलाचे डाग आसता कितें आसता ते आफ्टर 400 डिग्री ते बंद जाता पडटे, आनी तो इफेक्ट उरता तो कलराचो. आमी तांकां भायली जी ऑर्डर्स येता फोनार आयली जाल्यार आमी तांकां कोरियर करून धाडून दिता. नेम प्लेट्स तांकां रेगुलर आसता. आतां हांवें फोन 2-3 ऑर्डर्स आहा बेंगलोरच्योच आयल्यात, तांकां आतां डिझायन धाडल्या आनी तांकां आवडटा हें खूब. ते गोंयान आयले की तांकां दिसलें की ते लोकांक विचारून सोदीत हांगा येता पिक्चर. आतां मोपा एअरपोर्ट चालू आहा, ताका आमी डिझायन धाडलेले कालूच फायनलायज जाल्या, आनी ते तुमकां दिश्टी पडटले एवरी टायम जेन्ना एअरपोर्टार वतले तेन्ना आर्ट सगळें दिश्टी पडटलें. कित्याक तांकां ते एअरपोर्ट थीम घेतला तांच्यांनी गोंयचे टायल्स. आमी नवो जो कॉन्सेप्ट तयार केल्लो आतां मोपा एअरपोर्टाक, तांकां जाय आशिल्लें की गोंयचे लोकल आर्ट जे ट्युरिस्ट येता तांकां दिसपाक जाय म्हणून. म्हणल्यार गोंयान एअरपोर्टार देंवताच तांकां दिसपाक जाय की गोंयान कितें आसा, तर हे आयजोलेजस आसात आनी तांकां हो कॉन्सेप्ट थंय घालपाक जाय आशिल्लो. तेंच्यांनी एअरपोर्ट दाखयला की गोंयची घरां, तुमकां एअरपोर्टार सरले की गोंयची घरां दिसतली, त्या घरांक कशें टायल लायता कितें ते एअरपोर्टारूच तुमकां दिश्टी पडटलें, आनी ट्युरिस्ट एट्रॅक्ट जावपाक जाय म्हणून हें तेंच्यांनी घेतलां. इवन आतां एक हॉटेल चल्ला सेदाती गोवा, फूल आयजोलेज स्टायल यूज करून ते न्यू रिनोवेशन चालू आहा रुमाचें.
So coming back, going a little bit back to the history, as it moved, human civilization is a very nomadic tribe. You know, we keep traveling, we keep adapting. For example, now in Goa you have more Kathiawadi restaurants than in Gujarat. So likewise, similarly, Kathiawad is from Gujarat, right? They have very comfortably come and settled in Goa, started their restaurants, and people are enjoying the food. Similarly, when Spain was doing azulos, few artists from Portugal were obviously living, went there, travelled there, picked up, the king of Portugal picked up the art because he felt that that was a very, very, very lucrative form of art to protect the houses, to protect the chapels, to not let any weathering affect it. Plus, no maintenance, just a water wash and the tiles are as good as new, you know. So it was a very, very lucrative concept of decorating your houses, which the king of Portugal got it from Spain, and he started incorporating that into a day-to-day wages life, where they would paint, earn their incomes, at the same time decorate their houses. Where he decided that one particular full, like Lisbon, one lane in Portugal has both sides houses done full of azulejos. Today that's a heritage site. Today people go specially to see that, you know. Artists want to be there to see what is that azulos and what different kind of artworks have been done. So azulos art also incorporated geometrical art, they incorporated lifestyles, they incorporated the Christian mythology, they incorporated wars, they incorporated kings and queens depicting their lives, their daily lives and their personified lives, their portraitures. There was no painting done on paper because they realized that it will last lifelong unless affected or broken or some kind of a building damage. Otherwise it has a life that can go on. So from there, from Portugal, the same as Portuguese came down to Goa, they started ruling Goa, their people started coming to Goa, our people were highly influenced by them. They introduced that art, and how it started is they realized that this place is full of rains and dense forests, so there were very small houses at big distances. But having rains, you can't always have marble in carved things. It's not beautiful, right? It almost looks like a tomb grave kept there. So what they decided is, let's introduce this art as where the kings who were here, the soldiers, the martyrs, whoever came in, their names were written and their positions were mentioned and then put in their houses. So weathering would not affect it. So that's how this art came in. Then our local artists in Goa adapted that, and they realized that it is one of the most beautiful art, can be done in so many new ways. Even if you see, lot of Mario Miranda artworks are put on tiles. Initially they were painted. So this art today is only in Goa. I supply all over India. Okay, I do this art because I want this art to be promoted because of it being so beautiful. Like painting, so many people do. You have a choice of so many colors and create a dimension. This is only one color creating the same dimension. So the interesting aspect of it is the color. There is only one color. Azulejo is best. Now they have introduced like multicolored nameplates. So you have blue, you have red, you have green. But the beauty of azulejo lies in single color dimensions, where you can create more depth and dimension out of one color. So this is specific to Goa, but now people like this art. I am supplying to Bombay, I am supplying to Ahmedabad. All those people having villas don't want that now old wooden copper those metal nameplates. They want azulejos. They are going for azulejos, and they are ready to pay the price as good as they are paying for in Portugal. There is so we Indians know, we always I feel sad that people come to bargain. The same thing when bought or imported from Portugal, people are ready to pay a price, but that is one thing that now people are coming to terms with, that it is a hand painting, and to create a hand painting and with symmetry is not a joke, which is again not controlled by just your painting skills, it is controlled by firing also. So there are two different aspects involved. One is you may be a good artist, you may be conveniently being painting a beautiful pattern on a tile, but the fact remains that are you proficient enough to do the firing in the right way? Because if the firing is not done nicely, then you are not going to get the result properly. So yes, so the whole effort, and doing azulejos is not a rocket science. Anyone can do it, provided you give that enough time to learn that art. Any artist can become an azulejos artist. Any artist, so when we were working with the company that I was working first with, we had walking laborers just coming to ask us that, "Madam, will I get a job?" And I said, "Would you be interested in painting?" So he says, "If you teach, I will learn." That's the concept. If there is somebody to teach, anyone can learn. It is not a degree that defines an artist. It is an art. If you have the willingness to learn that art, anyone can do it, and one should, because it's a dying art. One should keep up with this art because it leaves lifetime. So that is the beauty of this art.
स्टार्टिंगान लोकांक गोंयच्या तिको इंट्रस्ट नाशिल्लो. स्लो इंट्रस्ट आनी आयज कितें गोंयांत जे काम चालू आसा गव्हर्मेंट प्रोजेक्ट्स, हॉटेल्स, कॉलेज, घरां, कितें ब्युटिफिकेशन्स हे आयजोलेचर स्टायल्स घेवनूच लोकांक करून दिसता आनी ते आवडटा खूब. आनी तो घर आसा न्ही ते आयजोलेचर स्टायला नंतर एक वेगळोच फील येता, तो लोकांक चड आवडटा. आतां बेंगलोरचे आनी दिल्लीच्या लोकांक, पुण्याच्या लोकांक खूब आवडूंक लागला आनी ते लोक एट्रॅक्ट जाला ह्या आर्टाक.
I see a lot of interest of outside people into this art. So of course I understand the fact that Goa has always had it, so people don't value it. It's there just as a nameplate, but it's a beautiful form of an art. It's a very simple but intricate art, So the future goes as long as artists like us keep promoting it, and I would also suggest people to look at it more than a nameplate. It could just be a wall mural, it could just be in a form of wall art, it could be a form of gifts people give. As long as we keep doing this art, it will live. And now as it's going out, I see a lot of other people looking at it as a very lucrative form of art also. Like, architects are going back to getting into this art, because initially all are, if you see the chapels, the government offices were all having azulos as a form of art and as a form of decor, So I hope artists continue doing it and keep it alive. It's in our hands, right? Any art form is in our hands to keep it alive, to promote it, to suggest. Like, I also see a lot of interest of the government of Goa interested in continuing with this art. So when we were dealing with the High Court, the first preference of art was azulos, that we can do azulos, but it was High Court. Instead of blue, they wanted it black, because their color is black. All the judges are wearing black, the lawyers are wearing black. That's why we conceptualized it to becoming a black and white azulos rather than blue and white.
India, you can't call them popular. Goa, they have become popular because they were in Portugal. Now different painted tiles you can find in different places. So popularity as such, you cannot.
This is one form. Then came the mosaic. So the government of Goa, like the GSRDC, everybody feels that this is art of Goa and we have to keep it alive. So it's very important to see that the government also encourages this art. So if it continues like this, it will stay forever.
Azulejos add the perfect balance of beauty and elegance. It shows us the blend of two cultures. The tiles give you a spectacular, aesthetical and mesmerizing feels. The art has been evolved beautifully and has been popularized over the country. This unique art of azulejos has never failed to attract and inspire its audience.